Are you accustomed to my heart? You must be, for it seems you've lived there far longer than I ever realized. Every corner of it still whispers your name. Every beat still moves to the rhythm you left behind. Sometimes I wonder if you knew, if you sensed how deeply I was sinking into you even as I tried to appear composed, royal, untouchable. You saw through all of it, didn't you? You looked at me not as a prince, but as a man who feared that love could undo him. And somehow, you undid me anyway, gently, beautifully, like dawn breaking over a long night that never wanted to end. I remember the first time your laughter filled the halls of this cold palace. It was so unlike anything I had known, pure, unguarded, alive. Even the marble walls seemed to echo it back, as if hungry for that sound. You made this place breathe again. You made me breathe again. Before you, my heart was a quiet kingdom, ordered, silent, ruled by duty. But then you arrived, and every wall I'd built began to crumble. You didn't ask for my heart, yet you claimed it with every word, every glance, every stolen moment where the world outside ceased to exist. There were days when I pretended not to care, when I stood at the balcony, watching you walk away, pretending the ache in my chest was something I could command to still. But you cannot rule love the way you rule a land. You cannot order your heart to forget what it has already learned to beat for. I tried, heavens, I tried, but your absence was louder than your presence ever was. I learned then that love doesn't fade when someone leaves. It deepens, stretches, becomes something infinite and cruelly tender. You became my silence, my longing, my pulse. The court says I've grown distant. They see me as cold, detached, unreadable, but they do not know that my every thought still reaches for you. When I walk through the gardens, I see your shadow among the roses. When I sit by the fire, I feel your warmth just beyond reach. Even in sleep, my dreams carry your scent, that faint trace of something sweet and sharp, like memory and frost. Tell me, have you grown accustomed to this? To living within the breath of someone who still calls to you without words, because I cannot remember how to exist without the echo of you inside me. Sometimes I think you haunt me, not in malice, but in mercy. You visit me in quiet moments, the sound of a page turning, the chill before dawn, the first snowflake landing on my palm. It feels like your way of reminding me that love never dies, it only changes its form. I talk to you sometimes softly, like a prayer I know will never be answered aloud. I tell you about the days, the nights, the emptiness that never quite leaves. And though I know you cannot hear me, I imagine that somewhere your heart stirs, faintly, knowingly, as if remembering mine. I have met others since you left, faces bright and kind, voices that try to reach the quiet inside me. But none of them fit, none of them move the earth the way you did simply by standing near. My heart rejects what it doesn't recognize, as if it has grown accustomed to only one kind of love, one shape, one presence, yours. Perhaps that's the curse of a heart too loyal. It learns only one rhythm and refuses to change. And so I remain, a man bound by love that time cannot dissolve, waiting for a presence that lingers just beyond touch. So tell me, wherever you are you accustomed to my heart? Do you still feel its ache across the miles in the quiet of your own nights? Because mine has never learned to beat without you. You may have left, but you still live here, in the breath between words, in the silence between seasons, in every fragile heartbeat that still dares to whisper your name. The moonlight spills across the marble floor, soft and cold, and I find myself staring at the empty chair across from me, the one where you once sat, draped in quiet grace, fingers tracing the rim of your cup as though even silence had a rhythm only you could hear. I wonder if you ever knew what that did to me, how even the smallest movement from you could command my entire world to still. I used to speak of strategy, of wars, of treaties, but my mind was always elsewhere, lingering on the curve of your smile, the cadence of your voice, the warmth of your nearness. You were the calm in my chaos, and yet somehow you became the chaos itself when you left. Every night I tell myself I will forget you, and every morning proves me wrong. The day begins, but it carries your ghost in its first light. I rise with duty, with the expectations of the crown pressing heavy upon me, but beneath the weight of the gold, your absence feels heavier still. I've learned to mask it well, the hollow behind my eyes, the H beneath my tone. They think I've become strong, wiser perhaps. But strength is nothing more than grief disciplined into silence, and wisdom is just the art of pretending that love doesn't hurt as deeply as it does. I sometimes wonder if you left because you saw too much of me, not the prince, not the figure carved by the world's expectations, but the man beneath, raw and flawed. I remember the night we argued, the way the air crackled between us, not with hate, but with something too powerful to contain. You said I loved too fiercely, that I'd ruin myself in the name of what I couldn't control. You were right. I would have burned kingdoms just to keep your light from dimming. Perhaps that's what frightened you, to be loved by someone who had nothing left to lose but his heart. I still visit the old courtyard where we first met. The ivy has grown wild, the fountain frozen mid-song, but I can still see us there. Your laughter rising into the air, your hand brushing mine as though by accident. I never told you what I felt in that moment. It wasn't infatuation or desire, it was recognition, as if I had spent a lifetime searching for something I could never name until I saw you. And now, even surrounded by the noise of the world, I find myself listening for that same quiet sound, the one only you could make, the one that made everything else fade. Do you know what it's like to live with someone's echo? It's not the sound that haunts you, but the silence that follows. I keep finding traces of you in places you've never been. In the hush before dawn, in the way snow gathers on the windowsill, in the faint hum of a melody I've never heard yet somehow remember. You are everywhere and nowhere at once, like the memory of a touch that never leaves the skin. I think perhaps this is what eternity feels like, not endless life, but endless longing. There are moments I almost convince myself you'll return. That one evening, as the fire burns low, I'll hear your footsteps in the hall, slow and certain, carrying that quiet confidence that once disarmed me completely. I imagine turning to see you there, not as a vision, not as a dream, but real breathing, fragile in the same way love always is. And yet every time the door opens and it isn't you, the ache deepens, rooting itself further into the parts of me that still remember what it was to feel alive. I think I fear that if you truly walked back into this place, I wouldn't know how to hold you anymore. Not because I've forgotten, but because I never stopped, and so I exist somewhere between memory and hope, a prince bound to the shadow of his own heart. You've become the pulse behind everything I do, the quiet muse behind every word I speak and every silence I endure. I tell myself I have moved on, that I have learned to live without you, but the truth is simpler, crueler. I have merely learned to breathe around the absence. If love is a wound, then mine has never healed. It only learned how to beat. The night is quieter than usual, as if even the stars are holding their breath. I sit by the window where the curtains drift with the wind, half expecting the door to creak open, half knowing it never will. My fingers rest against the frost-laced glass, tracing shapes I can't name. And for the first time in months, I feel something stirring, a whisper at the edge of my thoughts. It's strange how the heart knows before the mind does. Long before footsteps echo in the corridor, I feel it. The faint pulse of familiarity, the rhythm that once belonged only to you. I rise slowly, every movement heavy with disbelief. Years have passed, yet the air shifts exactly the way it used to when you entered a room. The same stillness, the same trembling calm. The door opens, and there you are. Not a dream, not a ghost, but a breath returned to a body that had forgotten how to breathe. For a moment I cannot move. The world tilts, the firelight flickers against your face, and time, that cruel, unrelenting force, folds itself into nothing. You are here, and I realize painfully that I never truly learned how to live without you. You look different, and yet entirely the same. There's a quiet strength in your eyes now, something steadier, something shaped by distance and ache. The years have touched you gently, carving stories into the softness of your expression. You stand before me, neither apologetic nor proud, just present, as if you've come not to explain, but simply to exist again within the silence we once shared. I search for words, but my throat burns with everything unsaid. How do you speak to someone who once knew every corner of your soul? How do you begin again with the same heart that never stopped waiting? You take a step closer, and I feel it. That old pull, fierce and familiar, like gravity itself has remembered us. I see the flicker of hesitation in your gaze, as if you too are unsure whether this moment is for forgiveness or punishment. The air between us trembles. I want to reach for you, to bridge the years that have kept us apart, but something holds me still, not fear, but reverence. Love like ours doesn't demand, it simply endures. So I stand there letting my silence tell you everything my voice cannot. I never stopped loving you. I never stopped belonging to you. When you finally speak, your voice is softer than I remember, touched by distance, shaped by longing. You tell me you left not because you stopped loving me, but because you were afraid I'd lose myself trying to keep you. You say you wanted me to learn how to live for something beyond us, beyond the ache. I want to be angry, to tell you how the years hollowed me out, how your absence became my only companion. But as I look at you, the anger dies quietly, because even in your leaving, you love me in a way I never understood, enough to let me break if it meant I'd find my way back to strength. I move closer slowly, the way one approaches a miracle. Your breath catches, and for a heartbeat, the world feels exactly as it did before, untouched by loss, untainted by time. I lift my hand, almost afraid, and let my fingers graze your cheek. The warmth of your skin is real, grounding, alive. I close my eyes, not to forget, but to remember fully every promise, every silence, every moment that led us here. When you lean into my touch, I feel the years dissolve between us, leaving only what was always meant to remain. And then, without words, you step into my arms, the place you once called home. It's not the desperate embrace of old lovers seeking to reclaim the past. It's quieter, truer, a surrender to what has always been inevitable. I hold you, and the world outside ceases to exist. The snow keeps falling, the fire burns low, and for the first time in forever, my heart feels whole. You were never just a memory. You were the unfinished prayer the universe finally decided to answer. And as I breathe you in, I realize love was never gone. It was only waiting for both of us to be ready to return. The morning after your return feels unreal. The first light spills through the windows, brushing gold against your hair as you sleep beside the fire. I watch quietly, afraid to blink, afraid that if I do, the image will vanish and I'll wake to find it all a cruel trick of the night. For so long, I imagined this moment, the peace, the warmth, the unbearable tenderness of having you near again. But reality feels far gentler than I dared to dream. The world outside the walls still lies frozen, but within this small chamber, I can feel spring stirring again, shy and slow, just as it always did when you smiled. When you finally wake, your eyes find mine in that same unguarded way they used to, steady, knowing, almost apologetic. We don't speak, we don't need to. The years that separated us seem to melt beneath that gaze. I see everything you endured, everything you carried alone, and I realize that love, even when fractured by time, never truly loses its shape. I reach for your hand, and you take it without hesitation. The simple weight of your fingers against mine feels like a vow renewed, wordless but binding, fragile but infinite. There are no declarations, no rehearsed speeches, only the quiet truth that we both survived the distance and found our way back home. Later, we walked through the palace gardens, now half buried under snow. The roses we once planted together are nothing but bare stems, but somehow they seem alive again under your gaze. You touch one lightly and smile, saying it will bloom soon. I want to tell you that it already has, that you standing here again are the spring my world had forgotten. For years I ruled a kingdom, but today I feel like a man again, a man who finally understands that love isn't about possession or permanence. It's about return, the courage to leave, and the grace to come back when the heart still remembers the way. The people notice the change in me almost immediately. They whisper that the prince has begun to smile again, that his voice carries warmth, that the halls seem brighter when he walks through them. They don't know why, and I don't tell them. Some things are too sacred for the world to name, but at night, when the torch is dim and silence settles, I still look at you and feel that same disbelief, that you are real, that you came back, that my heart was not foolish for waiting. I had forgotten what it felt like to laugh without pain, to breathe without heaviness. You remind me that joy doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it returns quietly like you did on a snow-covered night. And now, as I hold you once more in my arms, I realize there is no need to ask if you are accustomed to my heart, because you are my heart. You have always been. Every ache, every pause, every hope that refused to die was merely your name beating inside me. The winter outside will come and go, the world will turn and change, but this you and I here now feels eternal. I once thought love was something I had lost to time, but now I know love never left. It was waiting patiently, like the last flame in the cold, for the moment we were both brave enough to return to its warmth.